Recent environmental audits reveal a bitter truth. Our massive spending on heavy industrial machinery only bought us a temporary siege. Meanwhile, right beneath our boats, a highly coordinated, completely free, guerrilla defense network is winning the war. The secret isn't high-tech engineering. It's 3 forgotten native species we once tried to erase. To understand how they're flipping the script, we have to look back at the exact moment we disarmed our own waters. When an ecological crisis makes headlines, our immediate reaction is to blame the invader. We paint the Asian carp as a biological superweapon, an unstoppable force conquering new territory purely through aggressive dominance. It is a comforting narrative. It absolves us of responsibility, but it is also a fundamental misunderstanding of how ecosystems actually collapse. An invasion does not succeed simply because the attacker is strong. It succeeds because the fortress has been systematically hollowed out from within. Long before the first invasive carp ever drifted into the Illinois River Basin, humans had already spent generations dismantling the very mechanism meant to protect it. For most of the 20th century, state agencies and local angling communities waged an invisible, highly structured war against the river's own defenses. The target was not an alien species, but the massive, native apex predators that had patrolled these channels for millions of years. Driven by a deeply flawed wildlife management philosophy that prioritized a few prize sport fish, humans classified anything large, ancient, or unconventional as an enemy. They called them trash fish. They treated them as an ecological nuisance. It's a waste of space and a direct threat to recreational profits. It was a war of eradication fought with nets, commercial bounties, and official government mandates. Millions of pounds of native predators were systematically pulled from the water, stacked on muddy banks, and left to rot under the sun. The archival data from this era records a staggering loss. But the true breaking point can be pinpointed to a single year and a specific coordinate. In 1966, a lone fisherman pulled a massive, heavily armored predator from the Cache River, a sluggish southern stream in Illinois. It was an alligator gar, and it was the last of its kind in the region. Once that ancient giant was killed, a profound silence fell over the northern range of the basin. By the time the 1990s arrived, state biologists officially declared the alligator gar completely extinct within Illinois lines. A species that had survived the impact of meteors and outlived the dinosaurs was erased from these waters by human hands in less than half a century. This was the real turning point. A catastrophic structural vulnerability of our own design. When you remove a heavyweight titan like the alligator gar from a river system, you do not simply lose a single species. You trigger a cascading collapse across the entire food web. The top tier of the evolutionary pyramid was completely flattened. A massive ecological void opened up beneath the surface. Thousands of miles of warm, nutrient-rich waterways with absolutely no one guarding the door. The system had lost its natural immune response. So when the industrial aquaculture ponds of the American South flooded in the late 20th century, releasing imported Asian carp into the open waters of the Mississippi Basin, the invaders didn't have to fight for a foothold. They didn't have to outsmart a complex defensive grid. They simply drifted downstream into an empty castle. They found a paradise of slow-moving water, rich with precisely the plankton they were built to consume, and completely devoid of any native jaws large enough to challenge them. There was no resident police force to check their numbers, no ancient pressure to keep their growth in check. We didn't just experience a biological accident. We spent 50 years engineering the perfect ecological vacuum. And then we watched in shock when that vacuum did exactly what it was designed to do. It pulled the invader in. When the Asian carp entered the open waters of the Midwest, they didn't just join the native aquatic community. They completely rewrote the rules of survival. Their primary weapon wasn't teeth or physical aggression, but an insatiable non-stop appetite. By consuming massive volumes of microscopic plankton by the mouthful, these invaders effectively emptied the absolute foundation of the entire river food web. Every single native organism, from tiny minnows to the juveniles of massive predators, suddenly found its food source wiped out. The river was rapidly turning into an ecological desert for local species, while swelling with tons of invasive biomass. But the crisis could not be contained to a single river basin, because at the northernmost tip of this waterway lay a door, and behind that door sat the Great Lakes. in a massive freshwater network holding 1/5 of the planet's surface freshwater and supporting a commercial fishing economy worth over $7 billion annually. If the invaders breached that gateway, the economic and environmental devastation would be permanent. Panic swept through federal and state environmental agencies. The response was immediate, aggressive, and entirely mechanical. Concluding that nature was powerless to fix this problem, humans decided to engineer an artificial fortress. The primary battleground became the Chicago Canal Network, a heavily modified shipping corridor that directly links the infested river system to the pristine waters of Lake Michigan. This was where technology would draw the line. By the milestone year of 2020, government agencies had already funneled over $600 million into containment infrastructure, with long-term project projections quickly soaring past the $1 billion mark. Engineers constructed a multi-layered electronic gauntlet within the canals. Underneath the surface, massive steel electrodes pumped continuous currents of high-voltage electricity directly into the water, designed to shock any fish attempting to swim upstream. Beside these electric grids, they deployed heavy-pressure bubble curtains to disorient the invaders, alongside underwater acoustic speakers blasting intense, targeted sonar frequencies to drive them back. It was a masterpiece of industrial defense, requiring massive amounts of energy to maintain and continuous monitoring. For a brief moment, it looked like human ingenuity had won. The heavy walls of electricity held the adult fish at bay. But engineering, no matter how advanced, always operates within strict physical boundaries. It can only deter what it can detect. And this is where the mechanical fix met its catastrophic limitation. An electric barrier or a sonar speaker relies entirely on an organism possessing a highly developed central nervous system capable of feeling pain or sensing vibration. But biology does not play by industrial rules. The reproductive index of the invader is staggering. A single mature female Asian carp can release up to several million eggs in a single spawning season. These eggs, alongside the microscopic larvae that hatch from them, are completely passive. They do not swim upstream. They drift with the flow. They have no developed nervous systems to shock, no ears to blast with sonar, and no conscious fear to turn them back. When the heavy river currents pushed northward toward the shipping channels, millions of these invisible biological units floated directly through the million-dollar electric fields. They drifted through the bubble curtains like ghosts passing through a concrete wall. The billion-dollar defensive grid was operating perfectly, stopping the adults, while letting the next generation slip through entirely unnoticed. The sheer scale of the machine was completely defeated by the microscopic scale of reproduction. Humans had spent hundreds of millions of dollars fighting a war of attrition against an enemy that simply outbred their technology. The fortress was intact, but the perimeter was already compromised, leaving the multi-billion-dollar Great Lakes economy hanging by a thread. Technology had reached its absolute limit. If the machine could not stop the invisible drift of the next generation, the entire system was heading toward total collapse. The million-dollar machines failed because they targeted a single point in space. But a living ecosystem does not defend a single line. It deploys a decentralized, multi-layered guerrilla strategy throughout its entire geography. The millions of drifting eggs and helpless larvae that slipped past the electric barriers did not find an open corridor into the continent. The heavy river current naturally carried them downstream, sweeping them into the sluggish backwaters, the choked oxbows, and the warm, stagnant margins where the river slows to a crawl. In the oppressive heat of the summer months, these nurseries become suffocating traps. Rotting vegetation strips the water of oxygen, causing ordinary fish to drown. But in the shadows of these flooded timbers waits a survivor from an age before reckoning, the bowfin. The bowfin is the sole remaining lineage of an ancient order that watched dinosaurs walk the North American shorelines. To survive where other predators suffocate, it evolved a primitive lung, allowing it to break the surface and gulp oxygen directly from the air. It is a muscular, a heavy-headed ambush predator built for the darkness of the swamps. It lies perfectly motionless in the weeds, patient as time itself. When a school of juvenile invaders passes its hiding spot, the reaction is instantaneous. It strikes in less than 1/10 of a second. Anglers spent generations hating this fish, branding it a worthless trash species that ruined recreational fishing. They were wrong. The bowfin is a master balancer, an opportunist that feeds on whatever is most abundant in its patch of water. And in a backwater now seething with juvenile carp, the living fossil lurking in the shadows has quietly added the river's newest problem to its very old diet. It stops the takeover at the nursery door, but the battlefield changes as the river deepens. The juveniles that escape the swamp nurseries move into the open current, growing too fast and too large for ordinary fish to handle. This is where the second layer of the biological defense grid activates. In the deep, muddy channels of the main river, a native heavyweight dominates the darkness: the blue catfish. For years, biologists operating under conventional assumptions believed that native river fish and imported carp simply ignored each other. No one had ever recorded a local species consuming an adult bighead or silver carp. It seemed the invaders had grown completely beyond the reach of the local food web. Then a research team went looking in the deep waters near Alton, Illinois. They captured resident blue catfish and analyzed their stomach contents to see what was keeping them so massive. The data shattered decades of ecological assumptions. Adult carp were not an occasional snack. They were the single most important prey item by weight, appearing in the stomachs of 70% of the catfish examined. The blue catfish did not need to be managed, stocked, or coaxed by a government committee. It simply looked at the sudden explosion of introduced mouths and recognized it for what it was: food. A mature blue catfish can easily exceed 100 pounds, carrying a massive jaw designed to engulf large prey whole. In the deep river channels where human nets cannot reach, this native giant is running a relentless counteroffensive, thinning the ranks of the invader one deep water ambush at a time. Yet a river system faces an invasion of multiple generations simultaneously. At the absolute top of the water column swim the true giants, fully mature carp that can span 3 feet in length and weigh over 60 pounds. These massive filter feeders form a literal wall of mouths that starves the river's foundation. To break a wall of this scale, the ecosystem requires an ultimate perimeter defense, a specialized heavyweight designed for large, soft-bodied open water fish. That role belongs to the most formidable predator in North American freshwater, the alligator gar. Growing up to 8 feet long and weighing more than 300 pounds, it is a living relic lined with double rows of razor-sharp teeth and armored in scales so dense. Early settlers used them as iron arrowheads. It is the only native species physically capable of hunting and destroying the largest, mature invaders, and it is a defender we nearly wiped out ourselves, vilified throughout the 20th century as a destructive monster. The alligator gar was systematically exterminated until it completely vanished from the northern range of the basin. But between the years 2010 and 2025, a massive restoration program began bringing the giant home. Biologists raised young gar in specialized hatcheries and released more than 21,000 tagged individuals back into a dozen historical waterways across the state of Illinois. The scientists are careful to note that they did not bring this giant back to serve as a biological weapon. They brought it back to heal an old wound, to restore a missing piece of a broken engine. But nature integrated the piece instantly. As these tagged giants spread throughout the southern streams and reclaim their ancient territory, they are doing what no artificial barrier ever could. They are locking down the apex of the food web, applying a constant, crushing pressure from above. The machine failed because it tried to build a wall. The river is winning because it deployed an army. When these 3 distinct layers of biological defense finally converged, something extraordinary began to happen. In the upper pools of the Illinois River, the closest stretches to the critical gateway of Lake Michigan, the data lines on the ecological charts began to bend. For decades, researchers had recorded nothing but an exponential, terrifying explosion of invasive carp biomass. But recent field surveys have documented a dramatic, sustained drop in carp densities within these upper reaches. And because the crushing vacuum of those imported mouths has finally been throttled, the absolute foundation of the river is returning. Microscopic plankton, the invisible fuel that feeds every native organism, from the smallest minnow to the young of the apex predators, is blooming once again. The entire aquatic food web is actively rebuilding itself from the bottom up, and the operational cost of this massive environmental recovery is exactly $0. Ecologists have a specific scientific name for this natural counteroffensive. They call it biotic resistance. It is the inherent capacity of a native ecosystem to wage a war of attrition against an invading force through its own internal living machine. It relies on nothing but hunger, competition, and natural predation. It is a self-reinforcing, a beautifully complex model of asset allocation that no committee of engineers could ever design on a blueprint. The electric barriers and containment crews bought this river precious time, and without them, the Great Lakes economy might already be devastated. But an industrial barrier is inherently static. It requires constant fuel, infinite public funding, and human management. Biotic resistance is dynamic. It learns, it adapts, it self-corrects. It prints its own ammunition and scales its forces automatically as the threat changes. This shift in the river's trajectory forces a massive, sobering transformation in how we perceive global crises. For generations, modern human civilization has operated under the delusion of mechanical dominance. We believe that if a natural system breaks, the only logical solution is to engineer our way out of it. We build the wall, fund the program, deploy the technology, and attempt to impose a synthetic order from the outside. But the Illinois River is teaching us a lesson that budgets cannot buy. It proves that our expensive interventions are often just desperate, treating the biosphere like a factory that we are qualified to manage. Short-term fixes for vulnerabilities we created ourselves. The most durable shield an ecosystem has is not the infrastructure we build for it, the deepest. We do not need to play the role of the brilliant engineer saving the world with infinite capital and heavy machinery. The true path to ecological security requires a profound surrender of human arrogance. Sometimes the most advanced intelligent action we can take is simply to step back. It is the ancient diversity we stole from it. We must stop labeling ancient life forms as worthless trash fish based purely on recreational profit margins. We must find the systemic humility to look at our past mistakes, dismantle our destructive management models. When you return the missing pieces to a living system, a corporate subsidy, it does not ask for a contract or a government mandate, and welcome the guardians we exiled back to their native waters. It simply resumes a job it has perfected over millions of years. A quiet miracle is unfolding along lines far older than any human plan. It happens silently in the deep, beneath the brown water of the American Midwest, a dark channels where 100-pound blue catfish engulfs an invader whole, once declared extinct. The Great War is not being won by force or finance. It takes shape in the remote southern streams, where an ancient giant grows back into its armored scales. It strikes, and it breathes in the shadowed backwaters, where a living fossil older than the dinosaurs waits motionless in the weeds, patient as time itself. The river remembers what it was, and given even half a chance, given back the predators we took from it, it is reaching quietly, beautifully, and entirely, without our permission toward what it could be again.